guys, it's Phil coming back at you with another video. Today, I'm back. I'm excited. I'm pumped up. Hope everyone's doing well. Practicing self-care, not letting one thought, one situation, one person take them outside of what they know to be true. And I know it's been a little while since I last posted. I have a lot of stuff going on. But just know that you guys have not left my mind and not left my heart. So again, hopefully you guys are building yourself up, practicing self-care, and doing everything that you need to do to become the best possible version of yourself. And knowing that if you're not where you want to go, it does not mean that it's not going to happen. But before we get into that, 60 people did just that. They did the next right thing. They doubled down. They pushed past second guessing. They pushed past the self-doubt. They went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, and got the job done. And a lot of people on this list were like, man, should I even go into social work? Or, man, it's not my first time taking the test, Phil. Or, man, everyone around me is telling me that I can't do this. Or, man, is this test even built for me? Or, man, the ASWB released a research study that said it. People that identify as what I fall into these categories, like, I'm not supposed to be able to pass this test, Phil. Like, I can't do it. But what they had to do is dig deep and do the next right thing and not get critical, but get curious and do everything that they could in their power to go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest, to get the job done. And the 60 people that did just that are as follows: Michaela O, Flo O, Teresa V, Kaylee W, Tabitha H, Linda M, Elisa C, Beth R, Jenny F, Anna J, Kayla S, Shanika Y, Kelly G, Ashley S, Alyssa G, Nolila A, Alexandria G, Denise B, Sarah S, Kendall M, Karen M, Jennifer C, Jane K, Amanda C, Gabriella M, Emmanuel J. L, Gloria M, Ashrel A, Vanessa A, Melanie V, Victoria B, Amy S, Lakeisha M, Tiara T, Heather M, Tiffany K, Theo O, Vidra M, Latoya D, Lariah G, May S, Erica S, Mary B, Crystal T, Carly R, Tanya P, Cassie P, Micaiah V, Jasmine O, Eden R, Paige B, Tiffany B, Antonia M, Stephanie D, Jessica M, Stephanie O, Pam B, Nicole L, Lisa B, and Courtney L. And I'm so excited, man, because like I said, a lot of people on this list were doubting themselves, beating themselves up, tearing themselves down, and saying, Phil, I can't do it. And I'm going to play a couple of things before we get into the video. The first one is going to be a video of somebody that was actually a student at the University of Michigan. They went in the exam, doubled down, kicked the exam directly in the chest on the first time.
So, Phil, it's Kaylee. I didn't pass my master's ASWB exam. I kicked it straight in the chest. Kapow! That's right. And you see that smile? I smiled just like you told us to. Needed 98 to pass. Got 126 correct. So, I owned it. Now, when I was in the test, it was a lot different than I thought it was going to be. And every time I found myself just being like, oh gosh, I don't think I'm feeling very confident about this, I said, no, Kaylee. You know your stuff. You have a good intuition. You know how to act as a social worker. So you know the right answer to these questions. There were some weird ones. There were ones that I didn't study. But it all came down to trusting myself, trusting the work I did. And you know, there we have it. We did it. And my reward is I get to take another test in 2 years. Awesome. So again, this is for my master's level exam in Utah. Thank you for all of your help and support. It was fun to be your student again. And take care. Yes.
The second one is going to be somebody that was doubting themselves and saying, Phil, I don't even know if I can go in the exam, or I've never seen the exam before. I don't know if I'm too old. I'm not sure if I can get this done. Where they doubled down and did the next right thing and just took a chance, because you don't even have a chance of passing the exam if you don't even go in the doggone test. So this is a picture of after the exam and going in the exam, kicking it directly in the chest to get the job done. And this last person is somebody that is actually from Michigan represent, because that's where I'm from and that's where I'm at. And they win the exam and destroyed it. They're like, man, I had a lot of self-doubt. I was second guessing all the way through, but all I could just hear is your voice in the exam saying like, man, just are you sure that's what it, or why not the other answers? Or man, what would I need to do? Or man, not what do they need me to do, but what do I actually think? And they win the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. And why I like sharing things like that is because it shows it's just not me having the positivity. It's not just me doing everything. It's people going to the exam and doubling down and getting the life that they want to see for themselves. And it's stuff like this that reminds me, like, man, it's not what you do that makes you who you are. It's who you are while doing it, because a lot of times people don't know what they need or what they want to do. And it takes that moment of like looking at yourself and saying, you know what am I letting into my life, and what am I accepting, and what do I need to let go of? And before we get into that, because I got a lot of stuff on my mind, because it's been a while, and I like to give you guys everything that I have. If you want to rep and rock with me as well, and you want to have me a part of your process, the easiest way to do that are the Sunday study groups that I have, and the next Sunday study groups are 319, going through Maslow's parenting styles and attachments. So going through each of the concepts, not ways to memorize anything, but ways to be able to recognize and apply the information as you can use it into the exam, to go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done, and going through practice questions related to those. The next one after that is 326. So going over the 6-step process that I recommend every single person to keep in mind as they're going inside of the exam to kick it directly in the chest to get the job done, going over the tips that I find most helpful, and then going through for 15 practice questions. And as I always say, do not come into this session expecting to get every single question correct. Not that I don't think that you know what you're doing, not that I don't think that you're competent, but a lot of times people come into my sessions being like, man, Phil, I'm getting more questions wrong than I should, or man, how come your questions are so tough? Because I'd rather have you go through a difficult situation outside of the exam and practice and prepare for what it could be like inside of the doggone exam than to have easy street and then go in the exam and fold like a deck of cards and get knocked out. So if you're coming to my sessions, don't expect the questions to be 100% easy, but expect them to prepare you to actually go into the exam and handle the questions that you can see in that session. And the next one after that is 4.2, acronym and practice questions. So going over the acronym: safety, feelings, assess, refer, educate, advocate, facilitate, and intervene. The 6-step process that I recommend every single person to keep in mind as they go into the exam. And then tips that I find most helpful to help you build yourself up, combat second guessing, go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done, and then review and 10 practice questions after that. And again, same thing that I said, do not expect to come into this session and get every single question correct, but come into the session expecting to learn something from every single question, because my questions tend to be more difficult than the ones on the actual exam. The next one after that is 4.9, ethics. So going through the code of ethics, not ways to memorize it, but ways to be able to recognize and apply it and understand, actually, not just for the exam, but how can you actually be an ethical social worker, not adding, not taking away, not riling and dialing yourself up, not doing the generic stuff that people tell you what you're supposed to be doing, but informing you so that way if you're doing things in real practice and the ASWB is like, man, why are you doing this action? You understand ethically why you're able to do that. We'll go over subpoena versus court order, and then we'll go through practice questions related to that. And again, these sessions are Sundays, 7 p.m. Eastern time until they kick us out. They can't kick us out. I'm the host. I don't really have an end time for these because they typically 4.5, 5, sometimes 6 hours long, and there's a question and answer segment after each of them. So if you want to rep and rock with me in the Sunday study groups, the easiest way to do that is go send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link down below in the description. If you're not able to attend the session live, if you register for the session, it'll add your name to the email list and you'll be sent to the recording to review at your own leisure. In addition to that, if you want to rep and rock with me in individual tutoring, I still do offer individual tutoring for those that are trying to identify guidance for how to prepare for the exam, break down questions, or anything that you're looking for. If you want to rep and rock with me in individual tutoring, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link down below in the description, which is the view more under the title, and you'll be able to find all my calendars to the Sunday study groups, to the individual tutoring, as well as I do still have the one-day course, repping and rocking and rolling, and the one-day course has been the most successful thing that I've ever done. 1, because it gives you the most amount of time with me. 2, it gives you the most amount of tips that I could possibly give. And 3, it oftentimes is going to give you the most difficult practice questions that you've ever seen in your life. Because again, I'd rather have you go through difficult questions outside of the exam rather than going inside of the exam and seeing those difficult questions and not being prepared for those. The next one-day course is this Saturday, 3/18 from 11 a.m. Eastern time until they kick us out. They can't kick us out. I'm the host, and this session is 12, 13 hours, 14, sometimes 15 hours long, depending on what we do and what information is going to be covered. And again, the one-day course, if you're feeling unmotivated, you're not sure what you should do, this is the most important study group that you can attend because it packs the most punch, and the study group will review the tips that I find most helpful for people to keep in mind as they're going on the exam and preparing to go on the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. Most common reasons why people fail, because what better way to learn what not to do than to not replicate the same mistakes that people have made. Breaking down a handful of topics: subpoena versus court order, operant conditioning, referral versus supervision, personality disorders, the schizophrenia spectrum, bipolar 1 versus bipolar 2 disorders. We'll be going over the medications, the acronym, the 6-step process that I recommend every single person to keep in mind as they're going inside of the exam, and then going through 25 practice questions. And again, the one-day course has been the most successful thing that I've ever done, because a lot of times people go to other courses and stuff and they're like, man, I just don't understand it, or I just don't retain the information. And then they come to this one-day course and they're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, or man, I never knew that first, next, best, most all mean the same thing. In addition to that, if you're not able to attend the session live, it's 100% possible to receive the recording after the session. And if your exam is prior to the 3/18, you can send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description to register for the live session, or send me an email for the previously recorded session. And again, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys that reps and rocks with me, either in individual tutoring, just watch my videos, or the one-day courses, or in the Sunday study groups. It's amazing for how many people are part of the Fill in the Gaps community and how many people have passed their exams, and it's just amazing to me, man. It's a humbling experience to know that this many people are doubling down, this many people are believing in themselves, achieving their goals, and not letting one thought, one situation, one person take them outside of what they knew to be true. And for those that do not know, Audible is continuing to partner with me on my YouTube videos and my podcast. So if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fillinthegaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. It'll get you a free book, and it's the easiest way to support me and cost you absolutely nothing. And if you are curious what Audible is an easy way to get information on the go. So if you're an auditory learner just like me, or you're busy and you want to become the best possible version of yourself, Audible is an easy way to be able to do that. And again, if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fillinthegaps. Sign up for the free book. Get yourself a free book. And if you're trying to understand which book that you should get, there are a couple that I'd recommend: The Alchemist, The Archer, UOU, and Traumatized. Each of them are going to have lessons and blessings that can help you get further, not just professionally, but personally in your own life, to become the best possible version of yourself. And if you haven't already, hit the like button down below. It's the thumbs up button next to the title, because it allows for amazing social workers just like you to be able to find my videos. And if you haven't already, drop a comment down below about something positive, something you're going through, or something that you're looking forward to. Or if you went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, and gotten the job done. It's just an easy way for people to have that sense of community. Plus, I read every single comment, and I'll try to respond to as many as I possibly can. In addition to that, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below, hit the bell notification next to it. It'll send you an email every single time that I upload a video. And it's amazing how many social workers have been repping and rocking with the Fill in the Gaps community, and how many people continue to support and continue to build themselves up, go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest, and get the job done. And if you haven't already, look up my podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, or Spotify. I'd Fill in the Gaps, and it's amazing how many people rep and rock with me on that as well. And some things that have been going through my mind, because again, it's been a decent amount of time since I've talked to you or posted a video, and it's not because I don't enjoy doing this. It's because I have a lot of stuff going on. I had a lot of grading for the university that I had to catch up on, but I also have a lot of stuff personally that's going on that has just been taking my attention. But again, whenever I get the opportunity or get the time to reflect, I always think, how can I do something, or what are some words that I can share with people that are preparing for their exam? Because preparing for the exam is an easy process. It's not an easy thing that you can just be like, you know what, I'm just going to do it one day. I'm going to walk in the exam and it's going to work for me. The majority of people that rep and rock with me are people that have failed the exam before. They've taken another program, or they've been in a position where they've been putting their exam off and saying, man, I'm not even sure if I should be able to do this. I got an email just the other day that's like, man, Phil, I wasn't even sure if I should take the exam. I waited 15 years after graduating because I didn't think I was going to be able to pass it. I didn't think that I was going to be able to do it. My classmates and other people were passing this exam, but for me, I didn't think I was supposed to be doing this. And then I started watching your videos. I started attending some of your sessions, and I started to understand the information in a way that I never understood it before. Like even in grad school, the professors and instructors didn't teach me in the way that you're teaching me, and it made a lot more sense to me. And why I'm sharing that is because if you're in that position of like, man, Phil, I don't think that I'm supposed to be able to do this, or I'm not sure if I'm wanting to do this anymore, my biggest piece of advice is you have to believe at some capacity. The first step of achieving anything, or the first step of getting to where you want to go, is you have to believe it's possible. Because if you don't believe that it's possible at all, you're never going to get there. I promise you. Like, if you cannot even believe that it's possible, you're not going to be thinking about steps. You're not going to be thinking about anything. Like, if it comes to you, you're like, nope, I'm good. I'm not supposed to be doing this, or man, that other person over there is smarter than me, or man, that's the person that's supposed to be doing this, or man, this X person is supposed to be doing this, not me. So the first step of achieving anything is to believe, because if you don't believe it in yourself, or you don't believe that it's going to be possible, it's going to be a roll of the dice. And even if you're going into the exam and you're not even thinking it's going to be something you can do, or if you're going into the exam and thinking, man, what does this person say? Or man, I need to be doing these shortcuts, first, next, best, most, should, or man, I need to be looking for the buzzwords, or I can only read the last sentence, or I need to be doing those things. You believe in them, but you don't believe in yourself, because if you do not believe in your clinical judgment, or if you're not believing that you can get it done, there's no point in you even showing up. And I'm not telling you to just cancel your exam. I'm not telling you not to be there, but what I'm telling you is, if you're not about that, then you got to be honest with yourself and say, what is missing? Not like, man, what's wrong with me, but what is missing? Because your belief is going to take you to spaces and places that you would have never been to. Because if you don't believe that what you're going to do is going to be meaningful, you're not going to put everything you got into it. So the first step is you have to believe. Because in order to believe, you're not going to be anywhere. So in order to get there, you have to believe that you're the right person. You have to believe that you're in the exact right position that you could have ever been. It doesn't mean that you're going to get it there easily. It doesn't mean that what you've went through doesn't make it more difficult, but you have to at least believe at some capacity. So my encouragement for you is, if you don't think that you can do it, or if you find yourself second guessing, you have to identify, why is that the case? Not like, man, what's wrong with me, but what is making this happen? Like, what does this mean for me? And then once you believe, don't stop there, because the entire process of being able to achieve it is, because again, you've heard me say, man, in order to achieve something, you must believe it. But if you don't believe it, you're not going to be able to get there. But I was like, man, belief is not enough. Belief is never enough to get you there. Belief is the first step, but the next step, you have to perceive that it's going to be possible. Because belief is just, I can think it's going to happen, but your thoughts may not be powerful enough to take you there. So in order for you to get to the next step, you must be able to see that it's going to happen. Because perceive means that you can conceptualize that it's going to be possible. So belief is, man, it may happen for me, or I can see that it could be done. But the next step is you must perceive it. You must be able to see yourself doing the dang thing. Because a lot of times people are like, man, Phil, in practice, I'm doing great. I'm going with the last sentence. I'm going with the buzzwords. I'm just clapping my hands twice before I answer, etc. But the problem with that is because you're doing what they told you to do. So, and then you always hear me say, who is they? But you have to see it. You have to know it. You have to be able to do it. I can tell you everything that I know. I can teach you everything. But at the end of the day, if you think, Phil, I know that you can do it. I know that you can teach somebody else to do it. But for me, I'm out. That's the problem, is you know that it works, but you have to know that it works for you. That's the first step. You have to believe it. But the second step is you have to perceive it. And the way that you perceive things is the way that you're going to address a situation or approach it. Because to perceive it is to look at it. You have to understand what is going on. But way too many times, people are going through questions. People are looking at themselves and they're not noticing the little details. They're not noticing the lessons and blessings. They're not understanding what they need to do. So in order for you to perceive something, you must visualize what it's going to look like. You must have practice reps of doing it, but not just going through the motions, but understanding, if I do this strategy, does it work? If I do this, does it work? If I do this and it does not work, well, guess what? I need to take a step back and say, is there something that I'm missing? Is there something that I need to do differently? Am I trying to mix things together like a chemistry project? And exploding? Am I trying to do multiple things at the same time? So the second step is you have to see it, but you have to see yourself going through it. You can't just watch somebody else do it. You can't just watch this occur. You can't just let life go by, because way too many people have the belief of, Phil, I can do this eventually. I think I can do this. And then they watch other people do it and say, Phil, I've helped a bajillion people pass the exam. Or man, I've watched my coworkers. I've watched this other person do it. Well, you got to watch yourself do it. Because if you never see yourself doing it, you're going to think, man, it must be them, not a me situation. But again, if you were the first person that's ever done something like this, if you're the first person in your life that's experienced this, you may not have the template of what it looks like. You may have to create it. But in order for you to create something, you have to understand what it's going to look like. You have to identify what is going to be occurring in your life in order for it to occur. So belief is only the first step. You must perceive it. But after that, you must conceive it. The next step is conceiving something. And to conceive means to hang on to. It means to brew. It means to identify and obtain. Because again, if you have the belief of I can get this done, and if you can see yourself doing it, but you never take action, you never take hold of it, you never own the doggone thing, you're never going to achieve nothing. Because again, at the beginning of the video, I was saying, man, in order for you to pass this exam, you must risk failing the exam. Because nothing in life comes 100%. In order for you to do something, you have to be willing to take the negative side of whatever occurs. In order for you to pass the exam, you must have the likelihood or chance of failing the exam. That doesn't mean we're putting all of our energy or eggs in that basket of like, yep, I'm going to fail all the time. But you have to at least entertain the thought. Because way too many times, people go in with the belief of like, man, I'm going to pass. There's no doubt in my mind. Nothing's on the line for me. And I'm going to be A-okay. And they never visualize themselves doing it at all. They just stay in the belief point of like, yep, I'm just going to do it. But the phrase we often hear is fake it until you make it. But if you fake it, you're never going to get there. Because regardless of the spaces and places you get into, if you're fake, you're going to get called. If you're fake, you're going to not believe that what you've been doing is there. So in order to conceive something, you must take ownership. You must own that situation. You must hold on to it as if it is the last thing that you have in your possession. Because this exam does not have to take over your life. But this exam, if you want this, you have to put the equal amount of energy into that as you're putting into the other areas of your life. Because where your focus goes, your energy flows. And where your energy's at, your focus is going to go. But I talk to many people all the time. Man, Phil, I want to pass this exam, but I've not been studying as much as I should. Who determines how much you should study? How much do you need to study is dependent on your life, on what you have, and what you know at this point. So I'm sick and tired of people saying, man, study for this amount of time and you'll be A-okay, or man, you need this many tutoring sessions, or man, you just need to read that book, or man, you need this. You would never go into a client and say, hey man, I'm going to prescribe you something, and I'm not going to listen to what you're going through or what are your presenting factors, because I already know what you're supposed to do. And that's the problem, is when you do it that way, you start getting into that mode of, I don't even have to read the question. I don't have to take this exam seriously. I can assume things. I can jump to conclusions. I don't need to talk to anything. I don't need to do anything different. But the problem with that analysis is we don't do that in real practice. I don't sit down with the client and say, hey, my name is Phil. I'm here to help you. Let's do the confidentiality statement. And then I'm like, all right, so what brings you in today? Depression. And then I'm like, all right, session over. You have depression. You're probably going to be suicidal. I'm going to hospitalize you. Or you have depression, so your life must look like this. Or you're depressed, or you must be going through this. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. And if you're in the exam doing the same doggone thing, that's the problem. A lot of times when I meet with people, it's not that they don't know this stuff. It's they've never pushed their mind to the point of not just memorizing something, but you have to be able to recognize and apply it. But that applies to yourself too. You must be able to recognize what you possess. You must be able to recognize the lessons and blessings and where you come from or what you have in your life in order to apply what you know and what you have. But you don't think that you have anything, you're never going to accomplish nothing. And I promise you that. If you don't actually be able to perceive that what you have is valuable, you're always going to downplay yourself. You're always going to play yourself out to not be good enough. But the problem with that analysis is, in order for you to get to where you once were, to where you want to go, you have to be willing to give up that identity of, I'm not good enough. Because the problem with that analysis is who you're comparing yourself to is not in reality. Who you think you should be right now may not even be possible, but over time it may be possible. So you have to be willing to adjust your timeline, and you have to be willing to fail over and over and over and over and over. And you best not be looking at somebody else. You best not be saying, look at my coworker's doing. You best not be looking at what the supervisor's doing. You best not be looking at what anybody else, because you need to be so focused and intentional and deliberate and specific about your needs that nobody else matters at this point. Nobody in your life is more valuable than you. I promise you that. And that's why every time somebody's like, man, I've been watching this, or I've been doing this and doing this, I'm like, okay, cool. What'd you take from that? I'm not like, man, I need to be doing what that person's doing, or man, I need to be doing this, or I need to be doing that, because I know everybody doesn't like me. I know not everybody's repping and rock with me. But the problem with that is, I don't give the energy to that. I give the energy to the people that are going to rep and rock with me. I give the energy to be honoring to myself, and I never let go of where I once was. And that's why people are like, man, anytime that I talk to you, Phil, you're always trying to understand. You're always interpreting things differently, or man, you're so smart, or you're doing all these things. I don't let those things get to me because I remember what it felt like not to be smart. I remember what it felt like not to have anything. I remember what it felt like when people were gunning for me. They're like, this dude's too loud. This dude's doing all this stuff, or he's doing that. And I'm like, cool. I'm going to own who I am because I've been put on this planet to do this exact thing. And if it's over and people don't want to rock with me, I will be okay with that because I will wake up every single day and say, I did everything that I could up to that point. So that's what I'm telling you is you have to conceive it. You must grab hold of whatever you have and owner. You must take ownership of whatever that is. You own your identity. You own your skills and abilities. You own your past trauma. You own your faults. You own everything, but only once you start learning that those things don't define exactly everything who you are, because you get to mold and shape those experiences and take yourself into the future. Because in order to have experience, you must experience something at some capacity. That's why I always say I would rather rock with somebody that's been through something than somebody that's never been through nothing. Why? Because the person that's been through something knows what it feels like to be on the ground. The person that's been through something knows what it feels like not to get to where they want to go. The person that's been through something knows what it feels like to have supports tell them that they're not supposed to get to where they want to go, but in the back of their mind, they've learned that the only perspective and the only thoughts that matter are my own, because the only person that has my back like I have my back is myself. So you must believe that you can do it. You must perceive and see yourself being able to do that, but you must conceive it. You must materialize whatever you think. You must bring out what you know to be true. That's why I always say, don't let one thought, one situation, one person, or anything take you outside of what you know to be true. And that's what I'm telling you is if you let somebody in your life, your supervisor, your boss, your colleague, this program, this other person, tell you what you should be doing, you're going to be depending on other people to tell you what to do for the totality of your days. And I'm not telling you that you can't trust people, but you must realize that not everything that somebody is going to tell you is going to bring value to you. Not everything that people tell you to be true is actually going to be the truth. A lot of what people tell you is from their own perspective. They have their own angle. But again, if you do not believe that you can get it done, or if that you're the right person, or that you have the right skills, and if you don't perceive it and visualize and see yourself doing it, you're never going to get there. It's like trying to go on a road trip and you ain't got GPS up or Google Maps and you've never been there and you're just roaming the streets. You're lost. But the problem is, many people aren't willing to accept they're lost. Many people aren't willing to identify, you know what? I didn't get to where I wanted to go because of X, Y, and Z. Or man, you know what? I reflect on my exam attempt and I realize that I probably should have applied for accommodations. I realized that I didn't run the process that I thought that I was going to run. I realized that my nerves were shot like a gun and I didn't really use my coping skills. Or you know what? I normally read them out loud, but I was a silent film in the exam. And I always tell them, what stopped you? What made you change? What made you change yourself? And if it's something outside of you, you got to rectify that and say, what is my next step? Now, all right, it's done. It's over. I failed. I'm out. Because fail is find an important lesson and move on. Because in order to have a lesson, you must go through something. In order to do something that you've never done, you must have openness and willingness to say, you know what? I did everything that I could, but I missed something. You know what? I did everything that I could, and I may need a different set of questions, and I'm still going to go in there, exam, and kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. But the last step is achieve. So notice, it's not believe to achieve anymore. You must believe that you're the right person. You must perceive and see that you're able to do it, but you also must conceive it, own it, take nurturance of it, be responsible for the task. Don't just go through the motions and say, you know what, this exam don't mean diddly to me, and if I pass, it would be a-okay, and everything is great, or man, I failed, and it's not right for me. Where you once were may not have been in the right position, but you're still the same person with the same intellect and the same skills and abilities that you've ever had. You just got to water them and flourish them. Most people are innately born with skills and abilities. Most people are given skills and talents other people don't have. But it's once you don't value those things, Do you start devaluing yourself and molding yourself into somebody else, but only once you start realizing that what you've been doing is not aligned with who you are, do you have to make the decision? Do I want to continue on the same path of not being my own self? Or do I want to go on the right path for me and cut ties with the lies that I've been living in, or cut ties with things that are no longer serving me any longer? So that's what I'm telling you. In order for you to achieve something, you must conceive it, take ownership, grab onto it, do the best right thing that you can do. I was talking to somebody the other day. They're like, man, Phil, I was studying for 8 hours every single day. I was like, okay, how did that work for you? Well, I was neglecting this area of my life. I was neglecting this. I was neglecting that. And I was like, of course you're not going to be focused and attuned to the test because your areas of life weren't adhered to. Because if you put focus in one area, you're going to have deficits in the rest of your area. That's why studying should complement who you are, not make up who you are. And that's what I'm telling you. Do not let anything ever consume you. Because on the flip side of it, because again, remember, in order to achieve something, you must believe it, perceive it, conceive it. Then you can achieve it. On the flip side of that, the first step of not achieving something is to deny that it's something important to you, or deny that you're the right person for the job. If you're like, you know what, I don't even want to pass this test, really, honestly. I'm hoping the ASWB abolishes the exam. I never have to take it. Man, I just don't think that I'm ever going to be able to do this, so I'm never going to take the exam. Or, man, I'm going to take 12 programs, and I'm going to do everything that they say me to do, and I'm going to do what they say, and I hope it works out. But what you're doing is denying yourself who you are, denying yourself the possibility, but also denying the meaninglessness of this exam. Because if this exam doesn't mean anything for you, of course you're going to be willing to give up. You're going to be willing to toss in the towel and say, you know what, I can't stay focused on this, or man, I don't want this, or man, this is too painful for me to risk it. Because in order to achieve something or pass the exam, you must be willing to fail the exam. You must be willing to look at what are some things that you need to do going forward versus, you know what, I should just go in the exam, pass it because of who I am and what I know and my experience and all these things. And the ASWB is just out to get social workers because they don't care about us and they just, no one passes this exam and it's kind of a rigged game. And if you're in that mode, think about denial in the stages of grief. Denying is denying the reality of it and outright refusing to acknowledge that something is occurring. Freud even said, man, denial is straight up being like, you know what, wasn't me. Like, I don't even know what to do. And again, it's like having amnesia of like, you know what? I have no clue what happened in the test. But what you have to do is not just deny it, believe it, analyze it. Don't get critical, get curious. You should be more excited about not doing something right than doing something right because you're going to learn something. In order to learn something, you must go through something that you've never been through. But when you learn something, you're going to earn something every single time. But when you deny yourself, you're going to not perceive things. You're going to deceive yourself, because to deceive means to convince, manipulate, exploit. So if I'm deceiving myself, I'm like, haha, I'm going to pass this test, even though I'm doing the same strategies. Man, first next best most should. Man, feelings gather information, CPS, right to self-determination. Or, man, I'm going to go to the development. Man, I'm going to be a change, or I'm going to do all these things. And I'm going to do all these different methods. But if you know the methods don't work, but you're trying to deceive yourself and fake it until you make it, you don't need to fake it until you make it. You need to practice until you become, because it's the reps and practice that are going to determine what you're going to do when your back's against the wall. So if you're deceiving yourself of like, you know what? I'm never going to pass this test, or man, I'm not cut out for this, or man, I just need to robotically turn into this other person, or man, I just need to do this. I'm going to submit my identity because what I think is always wrong. And again, that negative spiral of like, man, I can't do this. But when you deceive yourself, you start making up facts in your mind. You're like, you know what? If I study this, or man, if I memorize this concept, or man, if I just decipher through the code of like, man, I need to go with C, or man, I need to read the last sentence, or I need to do this, I need to do that. If I do this, if I take the exam at a certain time, or if I do that, or man, the different versions of the exam mean this, and you're looking into spaces and places that aren't serving you. But what you do is try to deceive yourself by taking control of things that are outside of your control, and you actually diminish your ability to be able to do it, because where your energy is going is not actually paying you dividends or interest of where you're at. So that's what I'm telling you is, if you deny yourself, the next step is going to be deceiving. Because if you deny the reality of it being significant, if you deny that it's something that you actually want, or if you're in denial of like, I didn't do anything wrong, like the strategies and techniques I did, or man, that book that everyone talks about, or man, this other program, or man, this person must be the person that's supposed to be able to help me, but you weren't successful, or you weren't actually accomplishing what you thought that you would. You have to be able to take yourself out of that moment and say, man, where do I need to go? Like what is needed? Because the only way to stop deceiving yourself is to, again, have perception, perceive what you want. Identify and actually realize the real facts, because your emotions are going to have you go through the motions every single day of your life. But when you focus on the facts, you're going to identify what are some things that I actually did. Like, what is my responsibility? What accountability do I need to take? Like, what are some things that I did that if I look back on my exam that I know I shouldn't have done? I knew that I shouldn't have second guessed myself, but guess what I did? Second guess myself. Man, you know what? I knew that I shouldn't have done that, but I did it anyway. I should have read the questions twice, but I was so worried about the time that I ripped through the exam reading it one time, and I had a bunch of time left. Where are the facts at? Because the only way to get yourself out of denial is to analyze the facts of the situation and take ownership, take accountability, and understand what are some things that I can do in the future. Because the best thing that you can do for yourself in any situation, whether you do it right or wrong, is what are some things that I can take into the future. But when you are in denial, or you deny what is actually going on, you deceive yourself, you're going to be delayed. That's it. Because if I'm in denial of like, you know what, this isn't meant for me, or man, I'm not doing anything wrong, and I'm deceiving myself and fueling myself with facts, and this is the thing that bothers me so much. And it bothers me so much because people are like, man, Phil, I started watching your videos, I got a bunch of questions wrong, so I went to that app, or I went to that book, or I went to this other person that's doing YouTube videos, and it made me feel good. I was like, woo, I'm in a good position now. And then you went in the exam and got destroyed, and you're like, you know what? It must have been me. It's not you. It's the strategies and techniques of what you were doing. Because again, we hear it all the time. You are a product of what you surround yourself with. So if you surround yourself with shortcuts, buzzwords, negativity, and all these different things, what do you think that you're going to become? You're going to become those exact things. That's why I would put a bunch of money on this. That's why the majority of programs are canaries of themselves and say, man, first, next, best, most, and should. They should be your savior. Man, look at this acronym, and if you see this question, you need to be doing this. Put them in order. Do jumping jacks. Run 5 laps around the room before you answer the question. Or, man, eat cereal or do this method. Or, man, are you safe? Man, farm Gertz Road, or all these different things. And the problem with that is they canary the same exact things because the people that fail with those methods don't come out and say, this does not work. That is the problem. Is deception is only able to live when it lives in the dark. When deception is only able to occur when you are pulling it into yourself, or when you have that groupthink type environment of this is the only thing that we need to do. Deception does not live when it is brought to the light and you have accountability or people around you saying, man, that does not work. Or man, that's probably not something that you should be doing. And if you're in that denial stage, you're like, man, you're just a hater. Man, you just don't want me to be successful. Man, you just want this out of me, or you just want that out of me. And it's like, I can't take you out of denial if you're in that mode. I can't convince you with facts, because that's where we start stepping into a delusion, a false belief not based in reality, even when presented with factual information. So if people are telling you that it's not working for you, or if people are telling you, hey, this is something that you should be repping and rocking with, but you're not taking advantage of that, you're not conceiving it. You're not holding on to it. You're not taking ownership with them for the situation. So that's what I'm telling you. You have to be willing to do everything you can. Because if you're in that delayed mode, you're looking at yourself like, man, I should already be further ahead. Or man, that coworker over there, that supervisor over there, man, that other person over here is where I want to be. But what you need to ask yourself is not, what am I not doing? What did I have in my situation that was different than theirs? And they may have a different space and place and upbringing and everything. So you have to analyze, how do you learn information? What do you bring into this exam? What do you know? What don't you know? And get curious, not critical of like, man, nothing's going to work for me because of who I am. Or man, I got this diagnosis. Or man, I have a learning disability. Or I have this going on. Or man, people where I come from don't get out of it. Or man, this other situation. And I'm not telling you to not entertain that. But that's a part of the perception of that step. You must believe that you're able to do it. But you must take into account the facts and perceive what is actually there. And way too many times, people are trying to do what other people are doing without considering, what does that mean for me? Like the length of time of studying, the materials that you use, what you do in the exam, how you conduct yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you do all of these things should be thought about prior to you doing anything. So that way, when things do occur, You are prepared for what is to come. That's the difference between somebody that's faking it until they make it. When you're faking it, you don't even think about it. When you're faking it, you don't even have the experience to get the job done. But when you practice, the goal of practice isn't to be perfect. The goal of practice isn't to have everything go right every single time. The goal of practice is to identify what are things that are going well, what are things that are not going well, and how do I meet in the middle of when I'm in the performance to replicate the best possible version of myself in any given situation. So that's what I'm telling you. If you're in that position, I don't think that I'm going to get to where I want to go. I don't think I'm the right person. I don't think this. Take a step back and say, is this the truth? Because what you tell yourself is what you're going to believe. And again, believing something is going to lead to you achieving it, but you must perceive it, see yourself being the person that can get there. You must conceive it. You must own it, hold it, nurture it, and make it the best possible version. And then you will be able to achieve whatever you want to. And again, it's not that linear process that's just easy street, but in order for you to get to where you want to go from where you're at right now, you must be willing to give up who you are right now in order to become who you need to be in that event and in that moment, because over time, you should not just be the same person. You should be upgrading yourself by getting more pieces of information, more pieces of feedback, more experience in order to better inform yourself. Because in order to have experience, you must experience something at some capacity. But way too many times, people expect themselves to be perfect, and when they're not perfect, they are almost taken out. They're like, I've never failed before. And it's like, okay, well, it's not a good thing that you are feeling this way, but your feelings aren't going to inform you. Because you failing is a good thing because it's teaching you things that you're missing right here in order to get to this next moment or to become who you need to be in that moment. Because if you're somebody that's like, man, I don't think I'm capable of a whole lot and I'm going to get lucky, if you get put into a position of where you want something and you're not getting it the first time, it's going to be you being like, you know, I'm packing up, I'm getting out. Because you don't think that you deserve what you have. However, it's the darkest moments or what you are not most proud of that are going to teach you lessons and give you blessings to get you to where you want to go. And that's why I always say it's not my accomplishments that make me who I am. That's why I always say it's not what I do that makes me who I am. It's what I've been through. It's what I've experienced and who I am as a person that dictates my identity. So that's all I'm telling you. Don't let anything that you've been through, don't let one thought, one situation, one person, or anything take you outside of what you know to be true. And you need to surround yourself with people that are building you up, not tearing you down, not taking you outside of what everything is. But I always tell people, it's the negative things that you perceive as being negative that are experiences that other people don't have that are going to put you in spaces and places that they can never get to. Because in order for you to be able to get there, you had to go through what you went through in order to get that experience to set you up for where you're supposed to go. And that's where I'm telling you, if you've been through a lot, if you've experienced trauma, or if you're afraid of the exam, take out the blessings and lessons from that experience. But again, never lose your belief in yourself, never lose your faith in yourself in order for you to continue to have that perception. Because what you perceive is going to dictate what you are going to think about the actual situation. Because if you're going in there with a bunch of negativity of like, man, this ain't my first time, or man, this other person's smarter than me, this person's better than me, what is this other person thinking about me? You're not thinking for yourself, and you're not staying attuned to the moment, because in order for you to view the present moment as a present, you must remain present, but identify that it is a valuable thing, because not everybody is going to have the same perception. That's why you see people that are grateful for the smallest things, but when you're faithful over few, you're going to be a ruler over many and be able to get into the lessons and blessings and things that you deserve, because your gift will make room for you and obtain where you're supposed to be at. But if you don't think that you're the right person, you're not going to be there. So again, don't let the things that you're not doing take away from the things that you're doing, because what you're doing may be way more amazing than you're actually giving yourself credit for. And that's what I'm telling you. Have a perception or perceiving or perspective that is telling you that what you see is based in facts, not your emotion. And that's what I'm telling you, even before doing this video. And if you've gotten to this point, I appreciate you. And I'm going to be honest with you. Before I did this video, it's like, man, it's been a long time. No one's probably going to watch it to this point. Man, no one's going to find value in this. But I had to pull myself back and say, believe that you're the right person at this moment. Believe that what you're going to say has some meaning. At least one person is going to find benefit. So then I had to perceive and have perception of, man, there are people that are still rocking with you. Man, there's still people that are looking for guidance. There are people that are like, man, where is your video? Or man, when is the next video? When is the next group? And I had to tell myself, you're only thinking that because your perception is that people aren't finding value, but you have to base it in facts. Because then I had to conceive and take ownership and identify what is actually occurring. What are some things that I can do? And the best thing that I can do is show up being me, being authentic, being honest, and doing the next right thing. So in order for me to achieve this video, I had to do these same steps. But if I was in denial, like, you know what? Told you, people are passing their exams, but they probably think this guy sucks, or man, they don't want to hear this guy anymore, or man, this other person's doing this, and it's like, if I stayed in that mode, I'm going to deceive myself and avoid the real facts, but also be delayed, continue to put it off, continue to not do what I'm supposed to do, continue to not be the next right version of myself, but also not give what I need to for the people in the Fill in the Gaps community. So that's what I'm telling you. I'm a human too. I experience life too. So take it from me. Do it. Just do it anyway. Identify what you need to do, but also be honest with yourself. Surround yourself with people that are going to look at you and not just tolerate you, but celebrate your existence, that you are the best person that they could have ever met. And that's why I would say, do not let one thought, one situation, one person take you outside of what you know to be true. And that's why I'm telling you, believe. Believe that you're the right person. Believe it's possible, but also perceive the situation. Visualize your attack. Visualize what life could be. Visualize what you want to do. And that's why when people are like, man, Phil, I'm afraid I'm going to fail the test, I always ask them, what if you pass the exam? What if you pass the test? What would life look like then? And they're like, I don't know. So put your energy there, because you have an equal, if not greater, chance of going to the exam, kicking a directly in the chest to get the job done, because you've been doing actions. You've been putting forth effort to get to that mode, which is then conceiving it, holding it, taking ownership, identifying what is going right, and identifying what is the next step. What are some things that I need to give myself credit for? What are some things that I'm not even realizing are significant? And then achieving it. But when you achieve it, don't just look to the next thing. Don't just look over there, but identify, what does this mean? And celebrate it. Everything that you do should have a celebration. Everything that you do should have some sense of gratitude, because when you were in the past, you would have been amazed with where you're at right now. And that's what I'm telling you. It's the people that celebrate the small things that are always the most positive, because they know what it feels like not to have it. They know what it feels like to not be celebrated. They know what it feels like to have a deficit. And that's what I'm telling you. Anytime somebody's like, man, Phil, I watched your videos, I'm like, man, really? Like, you found my video somehow. And I'm amazed. Why? Not because I'm coming from this place like, man, I'm the greatest person on the planet. I'm amazed because it's another lesson. It's another blessing that I can be. And I'm just grateful to even have the opportunity to be able to do this. And that's why I always tell you, don't let where you think that you should be take away from where you're at right now. Don't let what you thought would be possible take away from what is actually possible. Don't diminish your accomplishments because it's not as great as someone else, because you're only going to be measured up against yourself. You're supposed to be racing against who you were yesterday, not who somebody else was yesterday or who somebody else is today. Because we only see what's on the surface, but we have to dig deeper inside of ourselves and say, regardless of what people say about me, regardless of whether people support me or not, I will continue to do the things that I know are right for me, because I'm the only person that can see where I want to go. I'm the only person that knows that what I want to do is right. So that's what I'm telling you. Keep pushing yourself. Keep doing the next right thing. Keep becoming the best possible version of yourself. And again, believe that you're possible. Believe that you're the right person. Believe that what you've been through is going to lead you where you want to go. Perceive the situation. See yourself doing it. Identify, what does this mean and what can I do? Conceive it. Take ownership. Hold it. Nurture it. Water it. Birth it in order to achieve it. Avoid denying and being in denial and avoiding the facts, because there may be some times that things aren't pleasant for us. We want to ignore them, but acknowledge them. Embrace them. Because it's not the things that you're not doing right or the things that you're doing right that are going to lead you to there. It's both of them together. It's an equal equation, because the mistakes you make and the things that you do well are going to blend together and make a well-informed picture. So that's what I'm telling you. Don't deny it. Don't be in denial. Don't run from the facts. Don't let your emotions drive your life. But also don't deceive yourself. Don't surround yourself with someone that's going to be an echo chamber of like, man, you're doing the right things, or man, that book is really doing you great, or man, you need to do this, or man, first night. Don't get into that mode. Because if you know it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. If you know in your heart, like, man, I needed to shift directions, but I've invested too much into this. But think about it. Even if you've invested time into something, but you know it's not leading you to where you want to go, how much time are you taking away from what you could be doing and walking in your gift? Which then is going to lead you to be delayed. You're going to always wonder, what if? What happens when? What could have been? Don't live in that mode. Because the majority of people on this planet, the most painful thing that we can go through is regret of what could this have been if I did X. So don't live in that mode. Live in the mode of, I'm going to do the next right thing, and I'm going to believe that what I have right here is what I need to do, and I've been through what I've been through, and I'm in the right spaces and places to get me to where I want to go. And from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. I love you. If you're at this point in the video, I know you rock with me heavy. And no, it's not lost on me. Like, I truly appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'm going to continue doing everything that I can to give back to you guys. And for those that have been rocking with me for the longest, and those that have been checking in on me and all those things, I appreciate it. I really do. Like, words can't even express what it means to be able to be in this position and to be able to help people. Like, I truly mean it. I love every single one of you guys. Keep building yourself up. Keep doing the next right thing. If you need anything, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. The rest of this video is me talking to somebody who went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, and got the job done. 2 people who failed the exam twice and are getting ready to go back into the exam and do the next right thing, as well as somebody that is preparing for the first time. I hope to see you in the individual tutoring sessions, Sunday study groups, in the free study group that's coming up. Any capacity, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. Take care, be safe, keep building yourself up. Do not let one thought, one situation, one person take you outside of what you know to be true. I'm getting out of here, guys. I'll see you in the next video. In peace. Out, guys. I would like to share my experience, my good man. I passed.
I'm ready to go.
What's going on?
Phil, my good man, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Listen,
yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you
Okay.
took your test, and what it was like to get there.
Well, my name is Joe, and I'm from Ohio. I took a licensed clinical exam on February 6th. My last previous attempt, the only attempt, was 9 years ago. And difference is I really wanted it at this time. I had been teaching and doing social work in schools for quite a few years, and I'm ready to do my own practice. And so, what was the process of preparing for the exam and passing it? It all started, I guess you could say, I kind of snacked along the way rather than binged from a buffet. I started at the end of November, and again, February 6th is when I took the test. So prior to COVID, I had tried another preparation course, which included both the video and the coursework. It was good stuff. I mean, nothing wrong with it, but there was a difference. And COVID had happened, and it kept everything from that point on. And I guess it just kind of fell out of my head for a while. And then in November, I started back up again. I found Phil. I found him on a Facebook social work page, someone suggesting, hey, check out Luttrell and see what he's all about. And I mean, it clicked. I signed up for a full day course. I felt that was the best deal. I'd done a couple other courses. I did an hour tutoring with him and the acronym class. I would say the biggest benefit from the class was the full day. Let's see. The thing is too, is I didn't go to the actual full day. I waited till the notes. He always emails the notes and the video link. And I kind of took it at my own pace at that point. I would watch a couple hours a day, look at the notes. I'd bring my notes wherever I went. So again, snacking along the way. I didn't sit down for 2-3 hours at a time. Although on weekends, I would plan to kind of like fortify and get the stuff that I would have difficulty understanding. So weekends were kind of where I would work on the things that I really needed concepts and understanding them. I would listen to Phil on my way to work, on my way home from work, in between teaching students and so forth. Once I knew the information, I stopped. And that's one thing too, I think, in terms of studying. If you know it, move on to something you don't know rather than keep studying the things you know. What I found helpful for passing, well, Phil, I have to say, and if you even look at my background, I mean, you as a person, I think the way you went about, the way you teach, your spirit, who you are, your teaching style has a lot of energy. And I would say that it goes deep to the spirit and speaks to the humanness in all of us, to the doubter, to the quitter, to the anxious, to the canters, to the believers of negative self-talk. Phil uses a certain type of vocabulary and he pairs it with information. That's helpful. That's a wonderful teaching strategy, is to pair that information. So when he uses these catchphrases, for me, that was who I took along with me during the test. Phil was in my mind when I was at the test. I would hear him talk to me when I was taking the test. One thing that Phil would help was that he reminded us of really who we are and who we're made to be at this point, and that we were equipped for this good work. We had to believe it though. And I think, many of us here, I see, and I've sit through these before as well, that sometimes students will they'll be like, oh my gosh, I tried, I don't know what's going on, what's wrong. And one thing that Phil taught me and continues to reinforce as I listen to, sometimes just for my enjoyment, Phil, but this idea of, you are where you are the person that you are, you're at this moment, you need to show up. And this this idea of second guessing yourself and the little man I call inside of us that tends to take the louder voice, but it's not really who we are. I would hear Phil sometimes when I was looking through the questions, don't second guess yourself. You got this, kick in the chest and move on. And that's what I did. Phil teaches the information in a way that keeps your attention, uses the material in a way that works with your attention. So, another thing too is use the material. He goes and he gives a lot of information. And so we should know a lot of this information already. So a lot of it, you move on to the next little piece of information and soundbite. And that's kind of how you fill in the gaps, if you will, of learning. So his style for me matched well with how I think. When I got to this test center, what helped me pass this was not only, Phil's lessons, but the first thing I did was I wrote the acronym down. I had it in my mind. I was, getting all prepped in the testing center. And first thing I did is I put that and I put it right next to the monitor so I could look at it. I always answered the difficult questions, but I always answered all the questions, and the difficult ones I flagged. So this way, if I didn't have any time towards the end, this is about strategy. If I didn't have any time towards the end, at least I had an answer on there, a 25% chance if I didn't have time to look over them again. And I think that's one of the things too, if you're flagging too much, that could be part of a problem. So at least go and put your best foot forward for each question. And I try to keep 45 minutes. I'm looking at the ticker. I'm thinking I got to have 45 questions answered per hour. And decide on how you'll invest that time before you go into testing. I try to complete 45 again every hour. The other question Phil wanted me to answer, and my last question he had was something you would tell someone struggling to stay motivated and dealing with anxiety of failing the test. Most important recommendation I can give you is to tell you are never 100% ready. This is kind of like, I got to pay my bills before I get married. You're never 100% ready. You start where you are and you work your way forward. And I think that's kind of like we that little man in our mind that's sometimes giving us the negative self-talk, and it's saying you're not ready. Oh, look at you got that wrong, and you got to take a chance. You got to go forward. Stop canceling the test dates to move them forward into time. I did that. You set the test date. I think I'm going to give it an extra month. All you're doing is procrastinating. If this is it, this is the time to do it, you're going to do it. All you need to know is what's in the question. Phil teaches this is what's in the question is all you need to know. Everything in that question, don't add to it. The worst thing you can do is add to it. If you're if you're a real analytical, thoughtful person, take it for what it is. Do not add to it. Mentally show up, be in the moment, be present, stop second guessing yourself, stop believing that little voice we talked about. And one thing that, if you look behind me, I have, it's not all about you. I have some of his phrases that I kind of digested. I had to get serious about this, because it wasn't just about me. It's not me about failing or passing, or it's about the things that are attached to it too. So it wasn't just a little piece of gold. I had a lot of gold at the end of this tunnel. There was a lot at stake. It was about my family, about my children, about doing something that I always wanted to do. I've always wanted to do, have my own practice, always. So at 52, this was the time to do it, right? Stop listening to that negative voice. During the test, give yourself at least 15 minutes for breathing. Okay, every 15 minutes, do some deep breathing. You'll notice that you'll start tensing up. You'll even become dizzy. The anxiety starts kicking in. Take your eyes off the screen. Wait a few seconds. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Get back to the test. Just chill out. If you don't pass, you will go home. Life will continue. You'll be embraced by those who love you regardless. Dust off yourself, dry up the tears, and you'll have success on that day. You will not quit. Phil said it before, it's not all about you. In this test, you need to consider your family, your opportunities, and what this provides, what it can do for your family and your whole life. So do what you need to do. Prepare for this test, knowing your strengths and weaknesses. Don't undermine or overinflate your ego. One thing that Phil's taught us, and continuously, I don't even know if he does this. I don't know. It's just who he is. But this humility, be humble and show gratitude. Like, show gratitude in the studying. Show gratitude in the process. Go easy on yourself. Be kind to yourself, because I think we're all here for a reason. Obviously, 233 of us, and sometimes we can be our worst enemies. Put that aside. Listen to the big voice. Don't listen to the little voice. And I'm very grateful for you, Phil. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
So yeah, walk us through a little bit of like what it was like to not be where you wanted to be, and then have to walk into the exam after failing and being like, crap, I got to put all that aside. What was that process like? Because
you mean the 9 years in between, or?
Yeah, just in general of like, man, I failed it, kind of like dodged it a little bit,
Yeah.
convinced myself that it wasn't important, but deep down, this is what I wanted. Walk us through that process of how to transition and switch.
Yeah. So it was out of sight, out of mind during those 9 years. I had gotten laid off from a school district. I was working for Cleveland School District as a school social worker, worked at a couple partial hospitalizations programs. And when I got laid off, I said, the next in my mind, I was kind of narrow-minded, and maybe that was, Phil, you've mentioned it before, this idea of timing. Things have to kind of fit in place, and if you sometimes force it or it doesn't, it has to, maybe this idea of me coming to that moment. But those times between from the moment I failed to going taking the test, there was much more than me at stake. And I think it was, this time of where being laid off, I went back, got my teaching degree, I'm a vocational special ed teacher too. But the reason why I had never gone back and did it again is because I really enjoyed the school calendar. And that was my main investment, is that I wanted to be there for my kids as they were growing up, right? I wanted to have 9 months a year work and home by 3, summers off. And then now that they're getting older, now it's like it's coming back. So this idea where, you know what, I want to do something now. They're going to have their own lives. They're doing their own things, sports, everything. So from failure, when I walked out and I said, okay, I remember seeing it like my mind, I don't know what the number 68, but somehow the number 68 was my mind. And I don't know if at that time when I took the test, it was like 70 to pass. I don't know, or maybe, I don't know what it was in my mind when I saw that, but I was okay with it. I was okay. And I think it was about timing. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be where I'm at now. So, and then here's the thing, Phil, I really, like, in my mind, it would pop those 9 years. I wasn't like rushing to take the test again, but I had in the back of my mind, and it was a failure. I also pushed away, failing is sometimes tough for me. I'm one of those guys that usually hit it the first time. And when I failed, it really did, it took an ego hit. And I think that's what, it's not about you. It is about your family. I think that's what kind of took 9 years to kind of get to that point in my mind where, I don't need to take tests because if I fail, big deal. But if I make it, but it was much more, stake in terms of, and it was a blessing. I have to say COVID for me was a blessing. It motivated me. I think that might be part of it too, is that I just wasn't motivated to take the test. I was sad. I was situated. I was happy. I had my school off, summer off job, but it really wasn't. It wasn't my fullness of who I believe I am created to be and actualized in myself. So,
All right. Any last minute advice that you'd want to give anybody?
Stick with the stick. You first of all, you got to find the shoes that fit. I'm looking 235. There's a lot of people. You've blessed. You have a beautiful process here. It might take a few different. You have to find what works for you. I think that's the most important thing too. But you gotta give yourself the amount of time, but don't get caught up in that procrastination problem. 9 years is a long time to not only take the test once and then be okay with it. So if it's something on your heart and you feel like you're equipped to do it, and don't procrastinate. Don't second. It's that little, and I think in myself too. I had 9 years did not make me a better social worker in order to take this test. It wasn't like you had been seized in for 9 years to take this test. This test it's really calculation. It's about timing and picking the two best and picking the best one. You have the answers. You have them in your head. And one thing that you always said, Phil, is this is one of the helpful thing too, I think your students can understand, is that don't jump to what you would do, like what might be what you do. Focus in the question in that moment of where that person is, your client. Just focus in that, the two gentlemen that came to the hospital. What was in that moment? Use the acronym as your guide, but that's one thing too. Cause me, I would be like, no, I would be like, I'm setting up extended care. I'm looking for something else. I'm looking something down the road. And that's kind of maybe how I think. I might know the answer, but I'll make mistakes in between. And that's like knowing myself. Like with my clients, I have to slow down in that moment when I'm with my clients. I learned that throughout the years with my students, because in that moment, you're going to pass it up and you're going to miss the whole thing. So in that question, what is it at that moment they need?
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming back and being willing to share.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
If you need anything in the future, just drop me a shout.
Thank you so much, Phil. You have a wonderful. Good luck, everyone.
Yep. Take care and be safe. Failed 3 times, but I have it this time.
Hi, Phil. My name is Shanae. So I am a school social worker right now, and I'm licensed in Delaware only. I was able to get grandfathered in, but I wanted to work in the District of Columbia. So I've taken the test I'm supposed to have accommodations, but my therapist and I felt like I would change all my answers during that time. And so this time, every time I just run out of time. So I know that's one of my issues. And another thing is just being confident in the answer that I chose. I tend to second guess.
All right. So I think that's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you could really use accommodations, and on the other hand, it's making sure that you utilize that time for good versus kind of evil.
Yes, right. And so making sure that, I flag the ones that I need to flag. And I think with the accommodations this time, because we had decided that I do need to use them, that I make sure that I kind of stick with the answer and not add anything extra to it. I noticed that is my issue, is adding extra stuff to the question and answering how I would do it versus how I've been taught to answer them.
And what would you say your process of breaking down a question is?
Prayer. I would say I didn't have a process per se. And I think this time around, because I found your channel sometime last year when I was like, okay, I've got to get this done. I have to pass. I've got a lot of stuff riding on this. So now trying to understand how to use the acronyms. I put in the chat how to break down the answers. Like you put intervene, application, and I just wanted to know how to be able to do that as well. But currently I didn't have a process during that time.
Okay. Well, I think getting a consistent process is going to be a helpful thing in order to be able to avoid second guessing, because second guessing often comes from one or two places. And of course, this is a generalization, so bear with me. So, second guessing, from my experiences, often comes from either one, you having so much information and practicing so many questions that you're trying to template it in to make it certain, or another place is I can't truly trust myself because I haven't been doing as good on questions as I think. So I'm just going to go against what I think because I can't simply get the right answer. And of course, there are other reasons for why second guessing exists, but oftentimes people fall into one or two of those categories. And if they fall into one or both of those categories, a process can catch you in the moment. And what that looks like is you're not trusting yourself, you're trusting the process that you're utilizing to break down the question. And I think identifying that is important, as well as if it's more of the I can't trust myself, understanding and asking yourself the hard question of, do I actually think I can pass this thing? And then kind of coming ahead with that. So where do you think you're at in that process?
Um, I don't know right now. To be honest, I think I'm really nervous. So I'm in the process of just trying to find where I am, if that makes any sense.
And what do you think makes you most nervous about this exam? Like, if you had to boil it down and put it into a pot, what makes you most nervous?
The wanting to see that I've passed, and I've taken it 3 times, and knowing that I failed it by 5 points, 11 points, 9 points, and just that playing in the back of my head. But also, I think what also makes me nervous is the timing that I take the test. I normally take it very much early in the morning, and I don't think that's a right time for me at all.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Do you feel like you've actually forgiven yourself for failing those past 3 times?
This time, yes, I have. I have changed how I studied. So I've changed up the whole way I've studied. I'm not sitting there for 2 to 3 hours trying to get things done. So I think, yes, the forgiveness has happened.
So do you actually think you can pass this test this next time coming up?
Yes.
Okay. Good. And what time would be the most ideal for you to take it?
Probably about 10 o'clock. So I've got 10 o'clock in the morning, because usually I'm taking it at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. It's just somewhere around that, after I've woken up all the way, that I'm ready to go around 10.
What do you think are the biggest things stopping you from being able to pass this test this time around?
Nothing.
Oh! Okay.
Nothing. Yeah, I think that now that I understand, yes, I need my accommodations. I don't need to be embarrassed by that. And also being able to understand that I had to change how I studied. I actually have the acronyms all around my bedroom, so that when I wake up in the morning, I can look at them. I can, really sit here. Now that my daughter is older, that played a part into it too. As a single parent, she's older now. I can say go read a book, and I can actually sit down and pay attention to my studies.
Okay. And not to leave you empty-handed, the biggest thing that I would push you to do, now that you're going to utilize your accommodations, making a system for how you're going to review the questions with that additional time in order to not spin yourself around or not maximize the amount of time that you have been given in addition.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is a lot of times people that will get accommodations will plan to take the exam with the additional time that they've been given. I often tell people to view it as if they're taking it in the 4 hours that they're normally allotted, and any additional time that they need, borrowing it from that accommodation time,
Mm-hmm.
as well as having a very structural system of, I'm not going to change an answer unless the question tells me to. So if I missed a detail, I misread a word, or any of those additional things. Does that make sense?
Yes. I see it in the chat. Someone asked how they can get accommodations. So I don't know if you want to cover that for them or not, or I can.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
the process of how you get accommodations, ASWB recently changed their website. But if you go into Google and type out ASWB accommodations, it'll take you to a section of where you have to fill out a form, and you and the professional that you're working with have to fill out what accommodations would be helpful, why you would need the accommodations, and what specifically would be the benefit of them. So the biggest thing that you want to do is, one, make sure that you have a professional, a doctor, a therapist, etc., that are willing to do this, but making sure that that professional is identifying specifically what is going to be the appropriate intervention and or measure. So for example, the accommodations that you could possibly get, from my knowledge, and bear with me, there may be some accommodations that are taken out. If English is your second language, you can be provided a dictionary. You can be provided a separate room. You could be provided access to a locker. You could be provided additional time up to 4 hours, so double time. You could be provided accommodations for a reader. So if you want somebody to read the exam to you, if you find yourself misinterpreting words, as well as you can get a paper and pencil examination, depending on what your needs are. But again, the professional that you're collaborating with, you're going to want to make sure that they're specific on what could be the possible interventions that would be plausible. But the biggest thing that is like a barrier to the accommodations are that you need to hold off on scheduling your exam until the accommodations are approved. And with COVID, your ability to be able to schedule the exam, they often offer the dates for you and tell you the specific dates that you need to be taking it. So that is the process on how to get accommodations, the possible accommodations that exist. But again, ASWB may reject the accommodations, but having a professional back them and advocate with you is going to be helpful in that process.
Can I say something about the accommodations really quick?
Go ahead.
So I just applied for accommodations. I had actually signed up first for to take it in May, on May 22nd, and then I applied for accommodations because I really did some like self-reflecting, and I'd already taken it in January, and I was nervous, and they wouldn't let me have any snacks because they're like, you can only have a cough drop, and if you need a cough drop, you probably should not be testing. And so I was nervous and all that, and missed it by 4 points. So then I signed up for May 22nd, and then I realized that I do need accommodations. So I went on the ASWB website, printed out the paperwork, turned it into my doctor so that I can have some snacks. But they also need you to write a letter to them explaining, like from a personal standpoint, how not having the accommodations affects you. So I was able to be like, dude, if I had a snack, maybe I would have been able to concentrate some more on the last one. But then also you have to mail it into them. And then so what happened was, so they gave me the accommodation. So now I'm allowed to have snacks. I can access my locker for snacks and juice and medications if I need it. And then they gave me an extra 30 minutes, but then I had to cancel my May appointment, and then get with them, pay them $30, and then reschedule it. So now, unfortunately, my May appointment was already taken by someone else. So now I'm going to be taking it in June.
First time taking the exam and super overwhelmed with what to study.
Hey, Phil. So I've graduated last year, and I've been studying off and on since then. And I'm just overwhelmed with what to study. I mean, I know there's community questions, theories, human development, and it just seems like it's overwhelming. Like it's so much information, and I can't differentiate what's the most important and what's least important to actually know.
Okay. I think that's a really, really tricky question. And I say that because every exam differs depending on the topics that you'll see. However, anytime someone is like, man, what should I study? I always want to make sure that they're studying with materials that align with their learning style. So, with that said, what would you say your learning style is or your learning styles are?
I'm pretty visual, and if I write things down, I remember it a lot better. But I have to see the material.
Okay. How have you been studying so far?
I started a program, and they have lectures, they have like slideshows, and they also have written. So I've been listening to the lectures, I've been reading it, and I've been writing information down. I'm trying not to write everything down because I don't feel like it's all probably needed. So I'm kind of having the hard time of differentiating, like, how much of this theory do I need to know? How much of the human development do I need to know? It just seems overwhelming.
So, when it comes down to how much of the content do you need to know, I always tell people do not memorize anything. And I know that's kind of shocking for a lot of people. They're like, well, why don't I memorize? Isn't that how I'm supposed to walk into the exam? You don't need to memorize. You just simply need to be able to recognize and apply the information because this is not a fill in the blank exam. It's multiple choice. So as long as you're able to navigate the concepts when you're looking at what the different presentation, the traits, the scenarios are saying, and being able to pick that out and apply the information and then connecting the answer back to the question, you're going to be in a better standpoint than if you could just recite all the nick and cranny of the theory. Because if you're memorizing it, you may be looking at it in the way that you would studied it rather than what it's actually being presented in front of you on the exam. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
So I would definitely say take the weight off of your shoulders. Know that the way that you're studying, as long as you're able to recognize it and apply it and get questions correct, you're in a better position than if you're like, crap, I don't know everything. Because there's an emotional component to the exam that even if you do know everything, you're going to forget a decent amount of it due to the amount of stress and shock that you experienced during the exam.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I think that would help because I do have that mentality where I feel like I need to know everything, even though I know that's not reality and it's not feasible.
So I think that's adjusting your expectations of where you think you should be, embracing where you are, and knowing that the feelings that you're experiencing are experienced by everyone that takes this exam, whether they want to admit it or not. Everyone tends to be nervous. And why is that? Because we don't know what we're going to see on the exam. Because the only thing that can dictate whether you pass or fail is the actual exam. So you can't grab on to something to make it certain. And if you start doing that, you're going to start taking shortcuts on questions and just kind of blowing yourself away. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Of course, just doubling down, just giving yourself that self-care and saying, man, I don't know everything, but I know enough in order to be dangerous.
Thanks.
And if you need anything in the meantime, just drop me a shout.
All right. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to be able to help. First time here, I test in May for my LMSW.
Hi, I'm Crystalia. I'm from the Virgin Islands. My first time seeing your channel, I just happened to pass it on social media sometime this week. So I registered because I'm trying to get as much in. Like the previous person said, I am a bit overwhelmed with what to study. So your tips just now as to just study for understanding instead of studying for memorization was very helpful. I am very overwhelmed, very anxious. It's my first time testing as well. It will be my first time testing. So I'm just like a bit all over the place as to emotions and everything else. I'm trying to study daily. I'm using I have a study manual. I can't remember which one it is. And I also have like a behavioral app that I use and I test myself or quiz myself throughout the day with. And that is making me realize like I really second guess myself a lot with my answering my questions.
And what do you think is causing you to second guess yourself when you're inside of a question? Like you run your process all the way through, but before you submit it, you change. What is in between that time of you wanting to submit it and you changing it? What happens?
I think I might overthink the questions. And then I also go back to what I would do or how I would handle a situation.
So walk me through that though. Like, is it like, all right, I've had a client like this before, or wow, I've seen a question like this before? What is you applying your direct experience to it?
It's just what I guess I would feel like I would do in a situation like that. And so I've seen a question like that before. It's a little bit of both altogether, everything.
So my biggest recommendation when it comes down to like taking a right turn on yourself is reminding yourself you may ultimately want to go with what your other answer is, but there are steps to get you to that answer prior to just jumping to the end result.
Okay.
Because a lot of times people will be like, well, we're going to end up here anyway, so I'm just going to go with this answer and cut out the middle person.
Mm-hmm.
Also, understanding that a lot of what you're going to see are going to be different, and the way that sometimes people construct questions are leading you in a specific direction that often contain themes, which could also create you to almost have a robotic system of, well, I'm just going to answer this question this way anyway, because the majority of the questions I've seen like this have been like this.
Okay.
And what that looks like is just creating a systematic way of addressing questions or addressing your own emotional reaction of, am I about to change my answer and why? And if the answer or reason why you're trying to change your answer is not from the question, you have to pull yourself back and say, I'm overthinking and I'm not actually speaking to this direct question. I'm speaking to a previous question, or I'm speaking to a direct situation that I experienced that is not actually happening at this moment.
Okay.
And it just comes with practice, and this exam is uncertain. So you can't tie things to be certain, but also knowing that your schedule and your situation may impact the way that you answer questions as well. So making sure that you're balancing and not forcing the studying that you're doing, and not letting maybe, all right, I got to get it in, so I'm going to answer X amount of questions. And then you speed answer the questions and not actually answer the way that you would if you were in a more calm mindset.
Okay, that makes sense as well.
So those are just kind of a couple of ways to, one, make sure that you're representing the best way that you would have wanted to be, and also giving yourself leeway of like, man, I'm not going to get them all right, so that's okay. But I cannot answer a question with a method or technique I normally wouldn't do, because you almost can't change that, but you can fill in information if you don't know it and get a question genuinely incorrect.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And if you need anything in the meantime, just drop me a shout.
Okay, thank you.
Took the exam 3 times, twice in Georgia and once in South Carolina, missed all 3 times by 4 to 6 points, but I will continue to take the exam because I will succeed. So it's really faint. Can you speak directly into the computer or phone?
Can you hear me now?
Kind of. But go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me?
Oh, yeah. Now it's way better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what's up? What's up?
Hey, everybody. My name is Cassandra, and I'm originally from Georgia. I've been up here in Greenville, Spartanburg now. May 20th will make 2 years. So my little background is I graduated in May 2018 with my master's. And that whole summer, I decided to study. I had some colleagues of mine at my previous job I was at give me a lot of like practice exams. So I was like studying like old practice exams that they had when they were in school years ago. So I studied those like throughout the whole summer. And my first time taking this exam was in August of 2018. And the first time I took it, I missed it by 6 points. So I said, okay, I'm gonna take this test again. So then the second time I took it, I took like a few months off of studying. And then the second time I took it was February of 2019. So before then, I still studied the same practice exams, but I also, this second time, I had bought the ASWB practice exam and studied that for like the 30 days before my test. Second time I took the test, I missed it by 5. So then Fast forward, I get a job offer here in South Carolina. I move closer. I actually have an older sister up here I was living with. Fast forward through that didn't work out, so I had to jump into a house and all this other stuff. So when I was going to take my exam again, I pushed it back. So I actually took my exam again for the third time last year, October 31st, 2020, and I missed it by 4 points. So I think for me, one of my issues is I kind of agree with the previous persons that sometimes I can kind of second guess myself. And then another thing I've noticed with me is sometimes as soon as that clock starts on the test, I'm trying to make sure I'm answering all the questions before the time is up. Sometimes I feel like I think I spend too much time on questions because I'm trying to overanalyze and overthink too. And I think with me, I can eliminate 2 answers, but then I get stuck between the other 2. And then I'm like, well, what would I do? As opposed to I can't think like that. I need to think about what the test wants me to, how the test wants me to answer.
So what is your process of ruling out the first 2 answers?
Well, what I try to do from the previous practice exams I look over and from what my previous mentors have tried to teach me is like just try to remember what kind of client is in that question. What you got to think, what kind of client you're dealing with, what type of social worker are you, what type of setting are you in, and try to look at what does the client need right then. But even though I can process that and put it in the question, sometimes I'm still like, no, maybe that's not right. Well, no, this is right. And I just go back and forth.
So would you say it's easier for you to rule out the first 2 and then the last 2 you just kind of like go rogue on yourself and like go away from what you've been doing for the first 2?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So at what point in time do you think that switch happens of like, all right, I'm going to do this process for the first half of the question, and then I'm just going to do a different process for the last 2? What do you think causes that switch?
I honestly don't know. I just don't know.
Okay. Well, something that could be helpful is maybe not ruling out 2 answers too quick and wrestling with all of the answers at the same time.
That would definitely help.
And why I say that, and I know a lot of programs and a lot of people are like, you need to rule out 2 answers as fast as you can, and then you can get down to the 2 other answers. And that's when people tend to freeze.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're going so confident and then you just stop mid-action and people are like, well, why did that person stop? And it's like, because they didn't feel comfortable in ruling out the first 2 answers, but they felt they had to. And then they just were like, oh my God, I'm not even sure because it could be the first 2 answers that I ruled out. And now you're just like spinning yourself around.
Mm-hmm.
So what that looks like is identifying specifically what does Cassandra need in order to feel comfortable and confident. And even though we're social workers, we love helping people, we need to almost put on earmuffs to muffle out the feedback from other people and look inside of ourselves and say, what do I specifically need versus what are people telling me that I need? And why am I letting other people tell me specifically what I need with and for my situation when I'm the one that's taking the test?
Yes, and I totally agree with that. And from a professional point, also a personal point, because I can honestly be honest with all of you, I've actually had to kind of, when it comes to this test too, when I take it, like the first 2 times, I was so excited, about taking the test. So, I would let friends and family know I was taking it, and I learned quickly that's a big no-no. Because when it comes to the day of or the day before, my phone is blowing up and my friends and family are like, ooh, you better pass that test, you better do this, you better do that. So I think that's a little bit of anxiety for me. And then all these 3 times I missed it by a couple of points, I've already had my so-called friends and some family be like, well, you just wasting money, you just need to stop, you're just not going to pass that test, it's not for you. And it's like, but you don't know what's for me. It just wasn't my time at that time when I took them tests for me to pass. And it's like, yeah, it's a lot of money I'm investing, But I don't look at it like that. I look at it as an investment of myself, because I kind of feel like in this world, we invest in everything else. We invest in relationships, we invest in marriages, we invest in cars, we invest in house, we invest in everything else. So why can't I say, okay, well, this, yeah, it's a lot putting out, but it's an investment in myself.
And good on you. Good on you for being able to stand up and say, I respect your opinion, but you're not living it.
Mm-hmm.
Because way too many times people will tell you what you should be experiencing, and that's not the case. Like, man, you're wasting money, or you're doing this, or you're doing that, or maybe it's not your time. You have to shed that off like a snake and slither into the situations that you know you need to be in. And I know outwardly outside of the exam, you likely do a really good job on that, but that doesn't go away from your mind when you're inside of the exam.
Yeah.
So what do you do to be consistent, to shed it off in the middle of the exam? Like, how do you get all those negative things outside of your mind from either people in your family, previous experiences you've been in, and even maybe coworkers that are telling you this? What do you do to safeguard your mind to get yourself to the next level?
What I've been doing, I've just been keeping more of my stuff to myself. Like this next time when I'm getting ready to take it, actually, I'm about to put my application and stuff back in next week. And so I just told myself moving forward, whether this is my last time taking it or if I have to take it one more time, I'm just not going to, just say anything to anybody, and just, focus on this test as, okay, this is the standard, don't worry about what other people are saying, so this is something personal I'm still working on too. Learning how to just rule out and not listen to other people. I guess for me it's so hard because sometimes it's like, I feel I'm doing well, but there's always somebody trying to down what I'm doing, and it's like, how can you say you're for me if you're always down with me?
And that's the most difficult situations to be in. But knowing that as long as it's important to you, you should not shed a light on it. And something I would push you further, not that it's incorrect, but I wouldn't even think about a future attempt. The only attempt that matters is this one right now. Like, I wouldn't even think if I have to take it an additional time, I'm okay with it. I'm not okay because this is the only time that I need to be focused on. I'm not thinking about in the future. I'm thinking about this moment, this exam attempt, this opportunity, this situation, because I may not need another time. So I'm not going to start investing energy in that area. I need to double down on this situation because I am worth that energy, that focus, and I need to start getting away from doing things for other people and start doubling down on myself and getting to where I need to go. I need to dig down to build a base, to allow for nothing to shake me away from what I know I need to be doing. And if somebody wants to help build the base with me, they can come in, but I'm not going to let other people tell me what I am capable of, including myself. I'm not going to tell myself if this needs to happen in the future, I need to do it today because I may not get it tomorrow. I may not get any other opportunity in my situation. So I am not going to have a plan B. I only have plan A's.
Thank you so much for that additional motivation. And thank you, everybody, for your comments. Thank you very much.
Because you're worth it. You're so worth it. And I know it's difficult for social workers. It gets me down so much when people say other people are telling me I shouldn't be where I'm supposed to be. Well, that's out of their perception, and they're not doing half of the stuff that you're doing, but they have enough lip service to talk for everybody. They just need to get out of that. But you're worth every single thought, positivity, opportunity, money, etc., because you've been through way too much to give up today. And if somebody wants to say something negative about you, that's reflecting them. And all you have to say is thank you for the feedback. But that's just an opportunity for you and your mind to be like, you're cut off. I'm glad that you warned me early on. Now I'm not going to invest in your situation. And it gives me more money and opportunity and ability to be able to focus on myself. So thank you. I appreciate everything that you just said. And they're going to be surprised. They're going to be like, well, what the heck? Why are they saying thank you? But in your mind, you're like, I'm gaining something actually. They're trying to tear me down and tell me what I can't do. I'm feeling inside myself what I can do. And it's a reminder of people, regardless of how successful and intelligent and accomplished I am, they're just going to be haters, and I don't need them in my situation. A lot of times people are like, well, my haters are my motivators. How about I surround myself with a community and situation that's actually going to motivate me to be a better person and not try to drag me back to a situation that I don't even need to be a part of, because I'm trying to be in a part of a group that I'm already above, and I'm trying to fit in with people I've already outgrown. Like, those are the things you got to remind yourself of I've outgrown this person, and that's okay. You don't owe anyone any explanation or any time or any energy, but unless you want to give it out to them. And if that's the case, that's 100% okay. But don't let anyone try to suffocate you, put you into a mold that you do not know, that you know you don't even belong in that situation. You have outgrown it, and there's better and bigger situations for you. In this exam is the key to getting you there. And like you said, it might not have been my time, but maybe I needed these lessons and these opportunities and these situations to happen to open my eyes to, if I had those negative people on me, I may not have been able to get to the level that I know that I'm destined to be on. Those are the things you got to fuel yourself up into, because you're worth it. You're 100% worth it. And this exam is the catapult or key to every opportunity and situation that you need to be in.
Okay.
And if you need anything, just drop me a shout.
I will. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to be able to help.